I'm Nathan. I'm International Relations AFT and one of the organizers together with Timo of this year's Student Starter Trip. Before we start, I would also like to thank our partners, Kronos Leuven, KU Leuven Kik, Data Camp, and Braconnet, because without them, this wouldn't really be a possibility this evening. Okay, so let's dive right into it. Yeah. Okay, so we are Academics for Technology. What are we? We are a student organization which aim it is to promote technology and entrepreneurship to students, so to you guys. And we do this via workshops, events, and of course, this trip as our flagship event. And at AFT, we have 3 key values. Innovate. Innovation and technology are really closely intertwined, and we want to bring you into contact with these innovative technologies and the people who work on them. Challenge. Challenge you to become an entrepreneur, challenge you to really improve yourself and work on those ideas you have. And last of all, but what I believe is the most important value, excite. Excite you about technology, excite you about entrepreneurship, because excitement is the root of all motivation, and motivation is the driving force you need in both technology and entrepreneurship. So, of course, these AFT values are closely linked to the goals we have for the Student Starter Trip. On this trip, we want to inspire you to maybe create your own company or be more entrepreneurial in your own career. This can be by starting your own company, or this can be by being a driving force in a big company that already exists. We also want you to learn from the experiences of experienced entrepreneurs and also from these C-level executives. We don't only want you to learn from their successes, but also from their failures, because a lot of the times there's more to learn there. And last of all, we want you to meet and network. Meet these people who I just mentioned, these entrepreneurs and these C-level executives, but also meet your co-students, these like-minded students who are also very keen to join you on this trip. So for the schedule of this evening, we'll start off with a little video with Stefan Kroijmans, Managing Director at Kronos Leuven, about what the SST actually is and how Kronos is linked to it. After that, our president, Michael, will talk about his experience in last year's edition. It's at the Belgian trip. After we had our little throwback, we'll take a closer look at what we have to offer you in this year's edition. And we'll also take a look at what I believe is the most exciting part of this evening, at what visits we have prepared for you. We'll end our talk with going over a bit of the practicals of this year, like the prize, and also, very important, the application process of joining us on this trip. Of course, there's a big chance you'll have some more questions that we don't already say in our presentation. So we have our Q&A session at the end of it, where we have our lovely Vice President, Emma, who is here to get all your questions. So just put them in the Zoom chat session, and we'll answer them on the end of the talk. If you still have some more questions after our presentation and after the Q&A, we have our network sessions with SST alumni who can talk to you about their own experience on the trip and maybe even give you some insight in the application process so you can make it in this year's edition. So that's the planning of the evening. I hope you all enjoy it, but let's start with watching the video.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, how and who are you?
My name is Stefan Kroijmans and I'm doing fine, thanks for asking.
Could I ask you 30 questions?
For sure, no problem.
Where are we right now, Stefan?
You're currently at the location of Kronos Leuven. We're located at the Science Park in Leuven, Heverlee.
And what is Kronos Leuven exactly?
Kronos Leuven is part of the bigger Kronos group. We are an ecosystem of companies driven by entrepreneurship, and we have a focus on technology, innovation, and creativity. And today, the group consists of more than 600 companies and 7,000 people.
Can you give some examples of the companies here under the Kronos Leuven branch?
Yeah, for sure. Today we are more than 16 companies residing here in the Kronos Leuven environment. And one of the groups is the Raccoons Group. They consist of about 7 different companies in their group, and they have a focus on new innovative technology. Think about artificial intelligence, think about edge computing, even quantum computing, although it's quite new, but we are working on these kind of technologies.
What exactly is it you do at Kronos Leuven?
Yeah, on one side I'm responsible for the location and the office, of course. I'm having the close relationships with the university and the high school, like KUL and the UCLL, but also to the student organization like yours, AFT. Next to that, I'm very active in the local ecosystem network organizations like FOCA and Leuven Mindgate. And lastly, in that part, I'm also having the close relationships with our partners where we are closely working together with. On the other side, I'm doing strategic account management for some customers like Brussels Airport Company, Acerta, Colruyt and some others.
Of course, we are here for the Student Startup Trip, but what exactly is the Student Startup Trip?
Yeah, the Student Startup Trip is an event organized by Academics for Technology. It has the purpose to inspire students on entrepreneurship and technology, and this by visiting some key metropole cities or regions where there's a lot of entrepreneurship like startups and scale-ups in the environment.
And is this the first time Kronos Leuven partners with AFT to organize the Student Startup Trip?
No, it's already the 5th time that we are working closely together.
What places has the trip already visited in these last 5 years?
If not mistaken, the trip went to New York 2 times, to Singapore, to San Francisco, and last year it was the Belgian ecosystem, and this was mainly related due to the COVID situation. But from what I understood, it was also an inspiring one to understand the local ecosystem and what was going on startup and scale-ups in the Belgium region.
And what metropole are we visiting in this year's edition?
Yeah, this year's edition will go to Stockholm. Stockholm, it has the second most unicorns per capita in the world, and it is also the place where Spotify and Skype are residing.
And why does Kronos still support this initiative after 5 years?
Yeah, I think that's rather an easy question because it's very closely linked to our own values: entrepreneurship, technology and innovation.
And why should someone apply for the Student Startup Trip?
I think it's a unique opportunity to meet inspiring and interesting people. Think about starters, entrepreneurs, think about C-level context, but also meet like-minded students. You will have the opportunity to understand what entrepreneurship is all about. And as last one, you will see also what role technology can play also in the society and so forth.
Okay, thank you very much, Stefan. Any closing words?
Yeah, I think grab this opportunity, enroll for the trip, get inspired by a lot of people, have a lot of fun as well, and yeah, we hope to see you at the trip as well.
Thank you, Nathan, for this short introduction. And of course, a big thanks to our main partner, Kronos, and all other partners to making the Student Startup Trip of this year possible. Hi, I'm Michael de Neer, and I'm the president of Academics for Technology for this year. But today I would like to talk in my role of a participant to last year's edition of the Student Startup Trip, namely the trip to Belgium. I can't even actually begin to explain how valuable a participation in the Student Startup Trip is. Just the possibility to connect with all these like-minded students, to get to know these renowned entrepreneurs, and actually to learn from their successes, but also from their failures. And I think I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be where I'm today without my participation in the trip. So actually, to give you a little insight in the trip, I'm going to present to you tonight some visits that we did last year to give you an example of what you can expect from your participation in the Student Startup Trip. And I would like to start with our talk with Jurgen Ingels. For those who don't know Jurgen is the co-founder, is the founder of Clear2Pay and SmartThing Capital. And actually in 2014, he sold Clear2Pay for a whopping $375 million, which is still the biggest Belgian tech exit since. And he actually talked about his life story, how he got into entrepreneurship by actually starting as a student entrepreneur in organizing parties, in becoming president of a student organization, and actually making from this student organization the richest student organization in Antwerp in that time. And also during his studies, he actually learned the importance of establishing a network. And this would prove him some really valuable experience actually throughout his career, and also his success actually depends on this. Next to that, he elaborated a little bit about the book that he wrote, 50 Lessons of Entrepreneurs, and went more into detail actually about the lessons that he wanted to learn to us. So to conclude, maybe he also gave an example of a moment where he actually had a failure. He tried to start up a business in Stockholm, in Sweden, but it failed due to actually a cultural difference, which shows actually the importance of a good market research before you start something. Next up was our visit with FEOPS and Capricorn. And I wanted to present this visit to you tonight because it really gives you the whole overview. FEOPS is a startup who is searching for funding, and Capricorn is actually a venture capitalist that is searching for a startup to invest in. And we had a talk with Mathieu de Beule, co-founder and CEO of FEOPS, and Mark Lambrechts, Senior Investment Manager at Capricorn. And we zoomed in on the financial activities, of a startup, and also on the business model. And something that I really took with me was that if you search for money, it's not only actually the search for money that counts, but actually to search an investor that also understands your product. Because if your investor understands your product, he will also be able actually to think with you as an independent director for the future of your startup and actually steer the startup in the right direction. And I don't think I need to present to you our next visit, as it was actually all over the news in the last few weeks. Because they increased their capital with $250 million. So last year we had a talk from Stijn Christians, co-founder of Colibra, the first ever Belgian unicorn. And we actually got the chance to ask the question I think we all have: how do you start a unicorn? And of course there is no answer to that, but he had some really useful takeaways for us, the participants, and I want to share some with you tonight. For example, he shared the experience they had with Colibra and the importance of knowing when you need to pivot, because many startups fail because the founders think they know everything and they don't see it when they actually need to pivot. And Colibra had actually the same problem. They were wrong positioned in the market as they focused actually on business semantics management, while data governance, as they do now, yields much more. And they wouldn't be where they are today if they hadn't pivoted back in the days. And secondly, another important thing that he said was actually that the importance actually to do a good market research and to really choose the market where you launch your product. Because Colibra actually started in Brussels and with global ambitions, but they actually moved to New York because the EU market was too much fragmented. And this was also actually a key success factor in their story. And then next up is maybe the most interesting talk of last year, and this was a talk of Martin Hinault. And Martin Hinault studied actually physics and business administration here at the KU Leuven. He was chief of staff of the Flemish Minister of Economy for a while. He has been a technology attaché to the Belgian consulate in Los Angeles and the embassy in Washington. He is also the strong man behind Leuven Research and Development. And to actually give you an idea, he can call himself friends with Vladimir Putin, which I think indicates how important this man is in the business world. And he actually shared with us his vision of our future economic society and which role Belgium has to play in it and which challenges there are actually for our country, but also for us as students. And for him, it's clear we are clearly evolving to an entrepreneurial society where everyone should have this entrepreneurial spirit from a young age. And in Belgium, we should actually have more this all things are possible attitude and risk-taking attitude, like in other countries. And this may sound weird, but actually in Belgium, we have too few startups that fail. But I think his most important takeaway, and also something that I took with me, was his advice to be ambitious, broaden your horizons, and go get some experience abroad, as we try to do with the student startup trip, and bring this experience back to Belgium to actually improve our own economy. Then the next visit I would like to shortly present to you is the visit to the European institutions. Why this visit? Because this shows really what we try to do to give you a total overview of the local startup system, including the initiatives by the local government. And they taught us actually about the initiatives that the EU takes to support entrepreneurship and to support startups. And they actually aim to stimulate cross-border growth for startups and also bringing startups from different nations together to actually create a rapidly growing ecosystem. So there are a lot of opportunities within the EU actually to get into programs, to get into networking sessions that I didn't know about. And for me, it was very interesting to also hear this story. And then maybe the last visit I want to present to you tonight is our visit to Katunasi. Why Katunasi? Because it isn't a startup, it is a multinational. And we also visited Katunasi 3 years ago at our trip to Singapore, where we actually got a tour on their new plant by the CEO of Katunasi Singapore. This year, it wasn't possible to visit Katunasi, but we got an overview of the entrepreneurial opportunities actually inside Katunasi, because, for example, they want to do everything in-house, so they don't work with external partners, which give the opportunity to you as a worker to be intra-entrepreneurial within Katunasi. And at last, we also had a talk from Cleo Vriemhout. She's actually now the terminal manager in Antwerp, but she was a general manager at the business unit of Katunasi in Colombia. And she shared with us her experience of being a young general manager and how you need to be entrepreneurial also in this role to actually grow, be able to manage all the things. And yeah, she really showed us that hard work pays off. But that's, I think, enough for me. I hope you have now a good overview of what the student startup is. And I would like to give the word back to Nathan, because they are going to present the student startup of this year to Stockholm, and that's obviously why you are here. So Nathan, back to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Michael. As you already said, it's time to take a look at this year's edition of the student startup trip. So as you already know, we're going to Stockholm, which is one of the top startup hubs here in Europe, if not the #1 top startup hub in Europe. Stockholm also houses big success stories like Spotify, Skype, Candy Crush, Minecraft, and a lot of others. We only have place for 35 people, so of course you're already in this call right now with a lot more people. So that's why we have to make a selection. That's why we have applications. But the people that do make it on our trip, we're taking on a 7-day inspiring trip. We're departing the 6th of April and we're returning the 13th of April. Of course, as you all know, this event is online because of COVID, so we really have to take COVID into account when planning this trip. But if you take a look at the COVID situation inside Sweden at the moment, it looks quite optimistic. almost all their adult population is vaccinated already, and in the last year and a half, 2 years, they have never been into a strict lockdown. So in that regard, it really looks quite optimistic to do a trip this year to Stockholm. But just in case, we're also working out a virtual edition if things go sideways. I would now like to present to you Timo, my colleague in organizing this trip, who will tell you a bit more about the trip timeline and how a typical SSD day looks.
All right. Thank you, Nathan. So let's go to the next slide first. So what does the trip timeline actually look like? So we'll be departing on the 6th of April, which is a Wednesday, and we'll leave in the evening. Then we'll return on the afternoon on the 13th of April. So this means that we'll be there from Wednesday till Wednesday in the Easter break. Between these times, we'll have multiple days, and most of them will be filled with typical SSD days. But we'll also provide you with one free day so that you can enjoy that one thing that you've always wanted to visit in Stockholm. So for me, that's definitely the Royal Palace. So what does a typical SSD day look like then? We'll rise up quite early in the morning. We'll have breakfast together at the hotel, and then we'll do one visit or activity before noon. Then at 12, we'll have lunch. That can either be together or like as a group, or you can go on your own or with smaller groups to some local cafe. Then in the afternoon, we'll do one or two more visits. And in the evening, we'll have dinner together, which will most likely be somewhere in the city. Then after that, we'll also most likely host a networking evening, which can be with people from Stockholm. But we can also organize something that's a bit more relaxed and just within our group. So I've been talking a lot about visits here. But what exactly are these visits? Which companies are we going to visit? So let's maybe start out with some of the more confirmed ones. The first one is the one that you've also seen a sneak peek from on our socials. So let's maybe reveal that one first. So let's look at the video. All right, so this is Einride, mostly unfamiliar to most of you, but it's actually a real challenger inside of the logistics industry. So why are they a challenger? First of all, they have fully autonomous electric trucks, which are also optimized in sense of aerodynamics without losing too much space. This is also the reason why they were recently announced as one of the inventions in the Times 100 Best Inventions of 2021. And it's also the reason why they recently received $110 million in funding in their Series B last summer. So, of course, these fully autonomous vehicles are not everything. I mean, not all countries allow fully autonomous vehicles yet, and it's also not possible on every road either. So, as a sort of intermediate solution, they also provide a local remote driving setup, which means that someone can be at the office and control multiple vehicles just from a remote place. Besides this, they also use artificial intelligence to optimize fleet management. So this is really interesting actually, and it's definitely one of the companies that will be a force to be reckoned with in the near future. Next up is Sub46. Sub46 is a Swedish startup hub that hosts tech companies and makes them grow faster. So within Sub46, there are multiple companies, but we chose out three that interest us the most. The first is Mint, on the top right of the slide. Mint is a company that produces smart company credit cards. So that would, for example, solve the problem of you having to pay for something, then need to send that receipt to your financial department and then get the money back from it. So in this case, Mint will just use those smart cards to do this automatically. Then we have Inside the Box. Inside the Box is a company that produces smart locks for your mailbox. So in this case, a courier that has a package for you receives a temporary code which you can use to open up the smart lock of your mailbox. Then you can put on the package and close it again, and then he will have no access anymore. So this is really good because when you have large packages being delivered to you, they can also be put in your mailbox without you having to go to the post office to retrieve them. Then lastly, we have Plus. Plus is on the bottom left side of the slide, and Plus is a company that pays a bit of the ad revenue that it gets to you. So if you've ever wondered why Facebook and Google get all of the money for those ads that you see, Plus will actually solve that, and they will provide tailored ads for you, which you can then see, and then you get a bit of the ad revenue back. So these were actually only 3 of the startups, but there are a lot more, but these are the ones that inspire us the most. Then we have Voi. Most of you have maybe been on an electric scooter, but if you have not, you must have seen someone on an electric scooter anyway. Voi has these electric scooters located in 70 different cities across 11 different countries. They also have a mission to be climate positive by 2030, which is even better than climate neutral. They will do this by shifting away the model, by taking away the model shift from cars. They also recently won Startup of the Year awards at the Global Startup Awards, so it's definitely a visit that is interesting. So there are a lot more. These 4 we'll not discuss more extensively, but we'll just mention them now. The first one is the embassy. So we'll host a evening reception with the ambassador, so the Belgian ambassador in Sweden. Then the second one is Vion Labs. Vion Labs uses mood data from videos. So they use AI to get mood data from videos, and they can then use that mood data to have better recommendation engines. Then is Stockholm School of Economics, which is a really prestigious business school in Stockholm. It's actually one of the best business schools in Sweden. And we've been talking to them to host a networking event together with them and some entrepreneurial students from their school. Then last stop is FIT, or Flanders Investment and Trade. They will talk about how the relation is between Belgium and Sweden, and how a Belgian company can expand into Sweden. All right, then I'll give the word back again to Nathan.
All right. So, as you may know, fashion is a fast-changing industry where we constantly feel the urge to reinvent ourselves. And this leads to 2 million tons of unused clothes each year inside the EU alone. So lots of clothes are not used or just not used enough to justify buying them. Research shows that on average we use a clothing item only 8 times, but we need to get to 60 usages to neutralize the average CO2 emissions for each piece of clothing. So how do you get to 60 usages? This is where Hack Your Closet comes in. They try to bring you a shared closet, and they use technology to match your preference profile to 15 other closet hackers. So you get one shared closet for all these people. Of course, you have the distribution problem once again that leads to more CO2 emissions. So they counteract this by putting a share of their revenue to Bamboo, which is an organization that plants bamboo in Southeast Asia. Next up, we're also in contact with Antler. Antler is a global early-stage VC, and they have a lot of companies under them and a large presence inside Stockholm. So we'll just mention 3 of them that we're looking into. So Offscript, the top right one. Offscript is a social media e-commerce platform where creators, artists, influencers can create their own shop community where they can sell their own merch, but they can also recommend their favorite products, add content to it. So you really have a community marketplace. Then on the left bottom side, we have Alting. Alting uses AI and data science to analyze all your meeting data. So they use video footage, audio footage, but also your meeting output, like in the notes that we're taking. And they analyze it all to really give you important feedback on how productive a meeting actually was to save your company both time and money. And on the bottom right side, we have Anyone. So maybe some people of you know the app Cameo, where you can pay for a celebrity or a person with a lot of experience to make a video for you. Well, Anyone is a bit similar in this concept because they allow you to make a phone call to really an expert in its field for 5 minutes. So for example, in case of a student startup, you have a startup and you need some legal advice, you can just pick up your phone, start the app, and get a 5-minute phone call with a real expert in its field about the legal parts of your problem. Then on the other side, another visit we have is Hedwig. So the insurance industry isn't really up to date anymore with how new generations are living. The insurance industry is linked to a lot of paperwork, a lot of hassle, a lot of work to really get your money's worth out of it. So Hedwig tries to really improve on this by going fully digital. So you can sign some insurances with them, like life insurance, house insurance, health insurance, and you can just make some quick, easy claims in a couple of minutes inside their app. If you have any problems, their team is always ready to help you out with their claims. But what is really special about Hedwig is that the fee you pay monthly for your insurance, of course, a part of it goes to funding their own operations. All the rest of the money goes into one big pool of all the users. And when somebody makes a claim, the money gets taken out of that pool. But at the end of the year, if there's any money left in this big pool of money, they all donate the rest of the money to charity. So you're really making a difference, and you're not just wasting all your money on big insurance companies. Once again, we're in contact with a lot of companies, so we'll just mention a few of them here. I think the first of them you already all know, it's Spotify. We're really trying to get into contact with them. The second one is Curb Foods, and Curb Foods tries to tackle the problem where if you are with a group of people and you all want to order food, but there is a lot of discussion about what type of food you want. Somebody wants Italian, somebody wants Chinese. Curb Foods actually has a lot of kitchens that in one kitchen they make a lot of cuisines, so you can just pay one delivery driver for all your meals together. Then on the bottom left, we have Climate View, which is a startup that works together with governments, and they provide simulations and models of the climate and how policies can affect the climate. And lastly, we're also in talk with Impact Accelerator, which is a big accelerator powered by Danske Bank, which is also has a lot of startup companies in Stockholm itself. Now, we'll also take a look at some companies that we are looking into, but we don't really have a contact with, but let Timo talk more about that one. Of course, we're going to start with a little video of the first company that we're looking into.
Change is upon us, and batteries are at the heart of it, powering a revolution from land to sea to air. But change never stands still, and nor does technology. Partnering to define a new state-of-the-art, Northvolt and Cuberg are together developing a next-generation lithium metal battery cell to power the future of electromobility. It's a cell quite unlike anything else on the market, leveraging a unique, high-performance liquid electrolyte developed by Cuberg. The new cell unlocks the long-awaited power and potential of pure lithium metal anode, creating a cell delivering up to 70% increase in energy density over conventional lithium-ion technology. And what's more, it's scalable. The Cuberg chemistry and cell design are compatible with Northvolt's manufacturing processes, meaning the solutions they'll enable are only years and not decades away. Together, we're enabling the future of energy and taking battery technology to new heights.
All right, so as Nathan just said, there are also some companies that we're still trying to reach out to. So the first one here is Northvolt. That's a video that you've just seen. Their main business is actually batteries and lots of batteries. They produce these batteries specifically tailored for some sort of companies such as Einride that we saw before. Northvolt really tries to do this with keeping the climate in mind, and that's also why all of their factories are mostly powered on green and renewable energy. Northvolt is also the first unicorn on this list. And for those of you that don't know, a unicorn is a privately owned company that exceeds the value of $1 billion. So Northvolt is recently in June being valued at $11.7 billion, which is really exceptional as they are only 4 years old right now. Then next up is Klarna, and Klarna has a really unique business concept. They let you pay everything in 4 separate payments. So when you order something online, you can pay later on in 4 separate spread out payments. They also give you 30 days of credit, which is really useful in the case that you buy something. It's interest-free credit, by the way. In the case that you buy something online, you get a package, but you're not really satisfied and you want to return it, then you do not have to deal with the hassle of getting your money back. So that's all Klarna that's doing that. They also are one of the startups, and which is really exceptional, is that the fact that they are one of the startups that was profitable from launch. That's also the reason why they recently got a extra funding of $639 million. And this puts them at a value of around $45 billion, which is insane. And even more crazy is the fact that they are still privately owned, which also makes them Sweden's largest unicorn. The company next up is Volta Greentech. Volta Greentech is a bit of a smaller company, more of a startup in comparison to Klarna and Northvolt that we just saw. But it's a really interesting one, actually. They are trying to fight climate change by making cows burp and fart less often. This is because these burps and farts contain a lot of methane gas, which is not good for the environment. They try to combat this by building a supplement based on seaweed, and this supplement can actually reduce up to 80% of the methane gas emissions from cows. But this sounds a bit ridiculous, right? Because, well, it's cows, how can they be responsible for so much emission? Well, they are actually responsible for almost the same amount of emissions as the whole of the US. So this is really a valid business idea. Then 4 more companies that are on our radar. First off is Cake. Cake produces electric motorcycles. Then we have Palterion. Palterion makes AI interfaces so that companies do not need an AI expert to apply AI in their unique value chain. Then up we have Resolution Games. Resolution Games is building AR and VR games off of popular games such as, for example, Angry Birds. Then we have Norgem. Norgem is a co-working space for startups, and it's also a VC fund backed by a lot of unicorn founders, such as, for example, the co-founder of Klarna that we just talked about. So now I want to give the word back to Nathan to discuss some of the trip practicals.
Okay, thank you very much, Timo. So now that you're hopefully all a bit excited about what we're going to do on the student startup trip, let's take a bit of a closer look into the practicals of it. So this is how our year timeline looks like. So the applications are already open, as you may have seen on our socials. We opened them on the 25th of November. Right now, we're at the SST kickoff, of course, and the deadline of the first round of applications is the 10th of December. Next up is, of course, the second round of applications, which will open in January, but more on the applications later on. Then in February, we announce who's selected for this trip. And then in March, we have 3 workshops before our actual trip, just to get to know each other already, but there'll be workshops linked to the contents of our trip, of course. And then in April, as already mentioned, we actually go on the trip to Sweden. Then, of course, an important part is the price. What does it cost to join us on our trip? Thanks to our partners, Kronos Leuven, KU Leuven Kik, Datacamp, and Brackeny Legal Consulting, we're actually able to keep the price at €400, which includes flights, accommodation for 7 nights, breakfast for all days, transport in Stockholm itself, and of course all the visits. Optionally, you can also select a travel assistance package if you don't already have one, for €16 more. But a lot of people already have this, so check it before you take the optional package. Then, of course, one of the more important parts of this evening, the applications. How do they look? So, as I already mentioned, the first round is already started. In this round, we ask you 6 more general questions to get to know you a bit more personally. And they're all anonymously evaluated. So, really important in this first round is it doesn't matter what you study, it doesn't matter what you know, what you have of a background. All we want to know is if you are motivated to go on this trip. That's really the key here. And really think about your answers. You still have 10 more days to apply for this trip. And it's really the quality of your answers that counts and not the speed with which you apply. Then around Christmas, we'll let the people who are selected to go to the second round know. And then they'll do the second round of applications where we'll ask a more personal deep dive question that they'll have to answer on a video. Deadline for that will also be communicated, but it will be the 9th of January. So everybody that wants to apply for this trip, make sure to scan this QR code because it will take you right to the application form on our website, or just go to aft.leuven.be/trips and you'll find a link over there. Also important to notice, if you want to stay up to date of the student starter trip, there will be a new LinkedIn page opened this evening. So make sure to go follow that one. And I think that's all for the applications. So right now, we're at the end of our talk. So we'll now answer a bit of your questions. Make sure to stay, because afterwards you'll have the opportunity to network with our participants of last year's and the year before's editions. I'll take a look at Emma, if there are any questions already for our Q&A.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, so make sure to drop them in your comments. If there aren't any questions, we'll just go over to the network sessions.
There is one question that came in. What kind of questions are asked in the second round?
The second round. We really can't tell you that much about it yet, because we don't want to give anybody an unfair advantage. So it will be a question tailored to your own. It will be a really more personal question to really get to know if you really want to go on this trip because of the right motivation and not just because it's a trip going to Stockholm this year.
Yeah, that's a good explanation, I think.
Yeah.
Is there a special dress code for the trip?
There is no special dress code. Dress however you want.
Yeah. Of course, try to be a bit business casual, but
casual is fine. Just don't come in your pajamas.
Yeah,
but I think most of the other parts it's fine.
How many people are usually applying for a trip?
Well, that's a difficult one to answer actually. So last year we went to Belgium, so applications were a bit lower then because it was also an online edition. 2 years ago, when we were planning to go to New York, applications were quite high. I think it was around 150, if I am right.
So I think 100, 150.
Yeah, something like that. So it is a bit difficult to get in, but as Nelson just said, the right motivation is all you need. So don't let that scare you, just apply and we'll see from there.
How much weight is given to extracurricular activities of an applicant? What type of activities are you looking for?
Well, I'm sorry, but we can't really answer that question because otherwise we'll give more information about the application process than we may give to you. So sorry, but we can't answer that one.
Yeah, I think what we might be able to answer something like extracurricular activities that really applies to how you show that you are an entrepreneurial person. I mean, I can't really think of an example at the moment. But if you are part of a student organization, for example, that's really something that is better than, I don't know.
I don't think we're looking for your dancing school evening activity.
Yes.
It's more related to your professional activities.
Yeah.
I would agree. Yeah. But if it's anything interesting, we would also like to know them in your answers.
Yeah, definitely don't leave it blank if you don't have any. Just whatever you think that fits best.
We have also a more practical question, whether the presentation is going to be made available after the kickoff event.
I'm taking a look at our IT team, wherever it is. We'll try, yes.
Yes. And when will all companies visited be confirmed?
That's not easy to answer because we're actually actively working on that. So we try to do this quite in advance. So it's important for us as well to have a clear view of what we're going to do over there, what the planning will be. But we can't put a date on that yet. That's still an active work in progress.
Yeah, I believe it's also a bit of fun if you don't really know what you're going into.
Yes.
We might keep some visits back that we all actually have planned.
Also, the visits won't be available yet before the applications close. So that's some. Okay, so the visits won't be available yet before the applications close. So that's also something that you can keep in mind.
If you would be abroad during the second semester, would it still be a possibility to join the trip?
Well, I think it ain't that practical if you're already abroad, but if you're selected to join us on the trip and you can make sure you're in Stockholm and we are, you'll still need to pay the full $400 fee. But if you're able to get there, it won't really be a problem, I believe. So you just need to figure it out on your own how to get there, but that's all.
About the workshop, do we know when they are going to happen? Is this already known, and is it going to be during weekdays?
So we don't have any set dates yet, but they will most likely happen in the 3 weeks before that we're leaving. I think that's what we agreed on, right? Yeah. So they will also be on weekdays, I think, because that's the days most people are in Leuven, so it's easiest to organize it then.
Can you also join if you study in the Netherlands?
Yes, I hear a yes from the background. Yeah, I believe it would be possible, yes. You also don't need to be a KU Leuven student. You can join from any university. So don't let that hold you back to apply for this trip.
For the application, is the resume that we need to attach like a CV or otherwise a more motivational letter?
It's a CV actually. So motivation, we get that from your questions. And resume is something that we use internally to get some bit of more knowledge about you.
I don't have any questions left for the moment.
Okay, we'll wait half a minute more if there are any questions. Otherwise, we'll go over to our networking session with our breakout rooms. Okay, no more questions coming in. I think we'll go over to our networking session. So we have quite a lot of former participants here for you tonight. You'll all be distributed into a first breakout room where you can meet some of these people. Make sure to ask them about their own experience. Also ask them about their application. Maybe then they can give you some more insights that we really can't. If you have any other questions, we're also in a breakout room. Or if you want to talk to somebody else, just leave your breakout room, go back to the main room where Emma and Michael will be to catch you up and maybe put you through to another breakout room where you can talk to us or to some other former participants. So we would be happy to get to know you as well. So make sure to drop by in our breakout room. Thank you very much for being here this evening, and we'll hope to see you very soon.